Hello friends, today I wanted to talk about how I got to Ketchikan. A lot of people get here by interesting means. Some people come on a cruise ship trip and they decide to stay because they love it so much. Some people come for a seasonal job and they decide to stay. And I got here by water also. This is the first city that you come to if you come by water to Alaska. So that's how a lot of people end up just staying here. I came here in September 1981 with my family. I was 18 years old and we had been living on our sailboat for about 5 years. My dad's dream was always to make it to Alaska, as a lot of people have that dream. And he had been dreaming about it for many years. When I was about 5 years old, he got a job working for Jacobson Brothers, which was a company based in Ballard, Washington. It's a little suburb of Seattle. Now it's much bigger. But back when we were there in early 1970s, it was just a small Norwegian maritime community. And his company did salvage they had a couple of big steel, about 100-foot salvage boats, and they would travel up to Alaska and they would retrieve sunken crab boats, airplanes, such things. And he fell in love with the water doing that. And we weren't living in Ballard at the time. We actually we were living in Washington, but they ended up getting a contract with the Navy to retrieve torpedoes that they had lost, not really lost, but they were at the bottom of mostly the Georgia Straits, right near Vancouver Island, British Columbia. And so they got a contract to retrieve those. And I'll post a picture of one of the torpedoes that they had retrieved on the deck of their boat up there. So we actually moved up to British Columbia for a little bit. We lived in Nanaimo when I was 5 years old. I went to kindergarten there. I don't remember a lot about that time, except for that my 1-year-old sister ate a slug one day, and that my neighbor was a bully and made me walk with my boots full of gravel one day home from school. Those are my memories. My dad really got a passion for being on the water, doing that job. He was an electronics technician, and he was in charge of keeping their underwater cameras in good shape. And so we ended up moving to Spokane, Washington, which was actually landlocked, so that was kind of an interesting decision. But I think he got a job there, a different job for a while. The Jacobson Brothers job was a little bit intermittent, so I think he got a good job in Spokane. Anyway, he decided he wanted to get a boat. So we were about a half an hour from Coeur d'Alene Lake in northern Idaho. So we went there one day and he was going to go buy himself a boat. And so we got there and he was looking at power boats. Then he met a guy who was working on his sailboat there. And the guy invited him to go sailing. So my dad went sailing and he was absolutely hooked. He wanted a sailboat. So he bought a Blanchard 26, which was a design first. I looked it up. They were first created in the early 1930s. And they were a racing sailboat at first. So we bought that boat, and our family of 4, me and my little sister, my mom and dad, would go out all the time on the lake. And my dad would pull us out of school so we could spend an entire week on the boat on Coeur d'Alene Lake. And then he soon decided we needed a bigger boat. So we got an Islander 30-foot sailboat. And wasn't long after he thought, well, I love sailing so much, we should live on a boat. So about 1975, he decided he was going to retire at 30 and live on a sailboat, and we were going to travel all over. So our boat was on Coeur d'Alene Lake, the 30-foot boat. So he devised a plan of how we were going to move on it. He had been making some money also, as we owned an apartment building, a couple rental houses, and then we had this old farmhouse we lived in out in the country in Spokane. So he was going to fix all those up, sell them. He put us all on a work schedule, even us kids. We after school we worked, before school we worked. We were just helping with the remodeling. He took the whole family up in the mountains and we cut some cedar trees. We cut the cedar trees into bolts and we split them into cedar shakes. So we shaked the whole roof and got everything done. It was a couple years of really hard work, and packed up everything and moved onto the boat in June 1977. And my dad was unconventional and full of energy, so he decided the best way to get that boat from Coeur d'Alene Lake to Seattle, which is where he wanted to be based because he was back working for Jacobson Brothers on more salvage jobs. He decided the best way to get that boat to Seattle was to take our old dump truck. He had this dump truck he got on an auction, and he decided he would trailer the boat down through the Palouse Hills and then down into the Snake River Canyon down to Lewiston, Idaho, and put it in the water there. So that's what he did. And I rode with him in the dump truck. It was an old dump truck. It was very reliable and sturdy, but it was trying to tow this 30-foot sailboat down these long, intense hills. And I have a very clear memory of, I must have been about 12 or 13 then, of the brakes smoking all the way down. We'd have to stop over and over again, and it was quite the epic adventure, as most of my dad's adventures were, usually pretty epic. And so we got it to Lewiston, put it in the water, and my parents sailed it. I don't remember sailing it from Lewiston to the dam, but there was a marina at the Little Goose Lock and Dam that was a little bit down the Snake River from Lewiston, and we had a dock there for quite a while we outfitted it. We got everything sold, everything stored that we couldn't sell, and we all moved on. Summer 77, I had just finished 8th grade. I was so excited. I had it with middle school. I just was awkward and definitely not like one of the popular kids. So I was delighted. We were going to be homeschooling, so there wasn't very many options back then. So I was starting high school, so I enrolled in the University of Nebraska Extension Division. So that's where my diploma eventually came from. My sister was in 4th grade then, and my brother was only, I think he was 4 years old when we moved on the boat. It was a very small boat. Anyway, so we soon took off from that dam, and we made our way sailing down the Snake River. And the Snake River locks and dams, those locks are incredibly impressive. The rise and fall is about 60 feet for each of them. The big, massive doors are about 100 feet high, so when you're in a little 30-foot boat, it's pretty intimidating, especially if you get in there with one of those big barges that are piled with grain with the big pusher tugs. And those big doors open, and the swirling whirlpool waters come rushing out, and you're just in a little boat. And we had one incident where our outboard gave out right as the doors opened, and we were being pushed and turned and swirled, and my dad was furiously taking the outboard apart and got it back together and working just in time to enter that dam. So we went down to all those dams, all the way down to the Columbia River, and had lots of adventures. We got grounded once, had to be rescued by the Coast Guard Auxiliary. The rivers do tend to have shifting sand bars, and so we had quite the adventure, and we ended up in Portland finally, down on the Columbia, Portland, Oregon. And we paused there to get a new outboard, do some repairs, and get the boat spruced up again. And then we made our way up the Washington coast. We paused in La Push, Washington, on the Washington coast, because we were running late, as you could imagine, with all the adventures we were having. The morning that he had to leave to get up to Seattle for his next job, he got up at maybe 4 a.m. and he was using the bathroom in our boat, and he didn't know it, but my little 4-year-old brother had put a sock in the toilet. We never figured out if it was on purpose or not. So he had a hand pump toilet. He was pumping and pumping and pumping, and then we hear a huge explosion and a whole lot of interesting language yelling out of there. And the outlet hose to the toilet had exploded from like several days of sewage that was blocked up. So he had an interesting start and a stressful start to his journey to get over there for work. So after he went over there, he went on that job it was only maybe a week or so, and I think they were just preparing for their next big salvage trip. He came on back to La Push, and we sailed down the Juan de Fuca Straits between Canada and Washington, and we finally made it to the Puget Sound and to where we docked for actually quite a long time. The Jacobson Brothers company was right behind the Ballard locks on Lake Union there, and they gave us a free moorage space that was tucked way back behind a bunch of ships that weren't being used. We were docked next to a 150-foot ocean-going tug for a long time. So that was kind of a weird place to live as a high schooler. We didn't really have many friends or things to do. We didn't have a phone. We didn't have a TV. Of course, there was no internet or anything, so had a lot of time for creativity and drawing. Our family was actually pretty close, and didn't take long after the toilet adventure to realize we needed a bigger and better boat. So we soon after bought a 36-foot Cal boat that had just come back from Tahiti. It was a really tough boat. We loved that boat. It had a lot more space, and I'll tell you about that in my next video. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, follow for more adventures.